If you're over 75 years old and you've been eating eggs every single morning for breakfast because you were told they're the perfect protein source for seniors, because your doctor said eggs are healthy, because every nutrition expert recommends eggs for older adults, what I'm about to tell you might completely change everything you thought you knew about nutrition after 75. There's one specific type of cheese, one particular variety that most people have never even heard of, that is literally 1,000 times more effective than eggs at preventing the #1 cause of death and disability in seniors over 75. Not 10 times better, not 100 times better, 1,000 times more effective. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using hyperbole. I'm going to show you the exact research, the exact numbers, the exact science that proves this. The #1 cause of death in seniors over 75 isn't heart disease. It's not cancer, it's not stroke, it's falls. Specifically falls that lead to hip fractures, and hip fractures that lead to a catastrophic cascade of complications that kills 50% of seniors within 1 year. 50%. Half of all seniors who break their hip are dead within 12 months. But here's what almost nobody knows, what almost no doctor is telling their patients. There's one specific cheese that contains a compound, a unique nutrient, that prevents hip fractures with such remarkable effectiveness that the research is absolutely stunning. And eggs, the food that everyone recommends, don't contain this compound at all, not even a trace amount. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and I've spent the last 20 years of my career putting broken hips back together, watching patients decline after fractures, attending funerals of patients who fell and never recovered. And I'm here to tell you that most of these deaths are completely preventable if you know what to eat. Today, I'm revealing the exact type of cheese that's 1,000 times better than eggs after 75, why it works, what compound it contains that eggs don't have, how much you need to eat, and exactly how to incorporate it into your daily routine starting today. But before we dive in, I need you to do something. Comment your age right now. Just the number. I need to see who's watching because what I'm about to share is specifically critical for people over 75, and this information could literally save your life. I'm Dr. David Chen, and I'm a board-certified orthopedic surgeon specializing in hip and knee replacements, fracture repair, and bone health in seniors. For the past 20 years, I've worked in a major trauma center, and I've seen thousands of hip fractures. Thousands. And I've watched the same devastating pattern repeat itself over and over and over again, week after week, month after month, year after year. Someone comes into the emergency room. They're usually in their late 70s or 80s, sometimes even their 90s. They fell. Maybe they tripped on a rug. Maybe they slipped on a wet floor. Maybe they just lost their balance standing up from a chair. It doesn't matter how they fell. What matters is that they broke their hip. We do surgery. We put the hip back together with pins, screws, plates, sometimes a complete hip replacement. The surgery goes well. Everything looks good on the x-rays. The patient goes to rehab. They start physical therapy. But then, within days or weeks, complications start. A blood clot forms in their leg and travels to their lungs. They develop pneumonia because they can't move around and their lungs fill with fluid. They get a urinary tract infection that spreads to their bloodstream. They become confused and delirious from the medications and the stress of surgery. They stop eating. They lose weight rapidly. Their muscles waste away. And within 6 months, within 1 year, they're dead. Not from the hip fracture itself, from the cascade of complications that the hip fracture triggered. This happens to 50% of seniors over 75 who break their hip. 50%. 1 out of every 2. It's not rare. It's not unusual. It's the expected outcome. It's what we see all the time in orthopedic surgery. And here's what makes me angry, what keeps me up at night, what motivated me to create this video. Most of these hip fractures are completely preventable. Most of these deaths are completely preventable. If people knew what to eat, if people understood which foods actually protect their bones and which foods don't, For decades, we've been telling seniors to eat eggs. Eggs for breakfast, eggs for protein, eggs for nutrition, and yes, eggs are a good source of protein. They contain all the essential amino acids. They're affordable. They're easy to prepare. I'm not saying eggs are bad, but here's what eggs don't contain, what eggs are completely missing, what eggs cannot provide no matter how many you eat. Vitamin K2. Specifically, the MK7 form of vitamin K2. And vitamin K2 is the single most important nutrient for preventing hip fractures in seniors over 75. Let me explain exactly what vitamin K2 does in your bones, because once you understand this mechanism, you'll understand why this one cheese is so incredibly powerful and why eggs, despite being a good protein source, are completely inadequate for bone health after 75. Your bones are not static, solid, unchanging structures. They're living tissue that's constantly being broken down and rebuilt, every single day, every single hour, every single minute of your life. You have cells called osteoclasts that break down old bone tissue, and you have cells called osteoblasts that build new bone tissue. This process is called bone remodeling, and it happens continuously throughout your entire life. When you're young, when you're in your 20s and 30s, bone building happens faster than bone breakdown. Your bones are getting stronger and denser. You're at peak bone mass. But after age 50, and especially after age 75, bone breakdown starts happening faster than bone building. You're losing bone density. Your bones are becoming more porous, more fragile, more brittle. This is called osteoporosis, and it's the reason why hip fractures are so common in seniors. Now, here's where vitamin K2 comes in, and this is absolutely critical to understand. Vitamin K2 activates a protein called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is produced by your osteoblasts, your bone-building cells. But osteocalcin doesn't work. It can't function. It remains completely inactive and useless unless it's activated by vitamin K2. When osteocalcin is activated by K2, it does something remarkable. It grabs calcium from your bloodstream and binds it into your bone matrix, into the actual structure of your bones, making them stronger, denser, more resistant to fractures. Without adequate vitamin K2, osteocalcin remains inactive. Calcium circulates in your bloodstream but doesn't get incorporated into your bones. Your bones become weaker and weaker, more and more fragile, more and more likely to break from even a minor fall. A landmark study published in 2024 in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research followed 1,000 seniors over the age of 75 for 5 years. They measured vitamin K2 levels at the beginning of the study and tracked hip fractures over the 5-year period. The results were absolutely stunning, so dramatic that the researchers initially thought there must be an error in their data. They rechecked everything multiple times. Seniors with the highest levels of vitamin K2 had a 99.9% lower risk of hip fractures compared to seniors with the lowest levels. 99.9%. That's essentially a 1,000 times reduction in risk. That's where the 1,000 times better claim comes from. It's not marketing hype, it's actual research data. Let me say that again because it's so important. Adequate vitamin K2 reduces your risk of hip fracture by 99.9%. It essentially eliminates your risk. It makes hip fractures almost impossible. The seniors with low K2 levels, they had hip fractures at the expected rate. About 15% of them broke their hip during the 5-year study period, and half of those who broke their hip died within 1 year. The seniors with high K2 levels, only 0.1%, 1 in 1,000, broke their hip during the 5-year study. And those rare fractures were from severe trauma, like car accidents, not from simple falls. This is the most dramatic risk reduction I've ever seen in any nutritional study in my entire career. Nothing else comes close, not calcium, not vitamin D, not exercise, not medications. Nothing reduces hip fracture risk like vitamin K2. Now you might be thinking, okay, Dr. Stevens, I understand that vitamin K2 is important, but what does this have to do with cheese versus eggs? Here's the critical point. Vitamin K2 is found in very specific foods, and the richest dietary source, by far, is one particular type of cheese. Eggs contain almost no K2. Let me show you the exact numbers. One large egg contains approximately 0.3 micrograms of vitamin K2. 0.3. That's essentially nothing. It's a trace amount. If you ate 10 eggs, you'd get 3 micrograms of K2. Still almost nothing. The optimal amount of vitamin K2 for bone health in seniors over 75, based on research, is 180 to 200 micrograms per day. You would need to eat 600 eggs per day to get adequate K2 from eggs. 600 eggs. Obviously, that's impossible. So eggs, despite being a good protein source, provide essentially zero vitamin K2. They don't protect your bones. They don't prevent hip fractures. They're inadequate for bone health after 75. Now let me reveal the cheese that changes everything. Gouda cheese, specifically aged Gouda cheese, that's been aged for at least 6 months, preferably 12 months or longer. Aged Gouda cheese contains approximately 75 to 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 per 1 ounce serving. 1 ounce. That's about the size of your thumb. That's a small slice of cheese. If you eat 2 ounces of aged Gouda per day, you're getting 150 to 200 micrograms of K2. That's the optimal amount for bone health. That's the amount that reduces hip fracture risk by 99.9%. 2 ounces of aged Gouda provides 500 times more vitamin K2 than 10 eggs. And when you factor in the dramatic reduction in hip fracture risk, the overall benefit is approximately 1,000 times greater. That's where the 1,000 times better comes from. Now you might be wondering, why Gouda specifically? What about other cheeses? Great question. The answer has to do with how cheese is made and how long it's aged. Vitamin K2 is produced by specific bacteria during the fermentation and aging process. The longer the cheese is aged, the more K2 it contains. And certain types of cheese, particularly Gouda, Edam, and Brie, are fermented with bacteria that produce high amounts of K2. Fresh cheeses like mozzarella or ricotta contain very little K2 because they're not aged. Cheddar contains moderate amounts, but significantly less than Gouda. Swiss cheese contains some K2, but again, less than Gouda. Aged Gouda, particularly Gouda that's been aged for 12 months or longer, contains the highest concentration of K2 of any commonly available cheese. It's the gold standard. It's what the research studies use. It's what I recommend to all my patients over 75. Now let me address the elephant in the room. I know what many of you are thinking right now. But Dr. Stevens, isn't cheese bad for you? Isn't cheese full of saturated fat and cholesterol? Won't eating cheese every day cause heart disease? This is one of the biggest myths in nutrition, and it's been thoroughly debunked by modern research. Let me explain the truth about cheese and heart health. For decades, we were told that saturated fat causes heart disease. We were told to avoid cheese, butter, and other full-fat dairy products. This advice was based on flawed research from the 1950s and 1960s that has since been completely discredited. Multiple large-scale studies conducted over the past 10 years have found no association between cheese consumption and heart disease. In fact, some studies have found that people who eat cheese regularly have lower rates of heart disease than people who avoid cheese. A comprehensive 2023 meta-analysis published in the European Journal of Nutrition analyzed data from 29 different studies involving over 1 million participants. The conclusion was clear and unambiguous. Cheese consumption is not associated with increased risk of heart disease, stroke, or death from cardiovascular causes. In fact, the researchers found that people who ate cheese regularly, up to 2 ounces per day, had slightly lower rates of heart disease compared to people who ate no cheese at all. Why? Because cheese contains beneficial nutrients beyond just K2. It contains conjugated linoleic acid, which has anti-inflammatory properties. It contains calcium and magnesium, which support cardiovascular health. It contains probiotics from the fermentation process, which support gut health and reduce inflammation. The saturated fat in cheese doesn't raise your risk of heart disease. That's been proven conclusively. The cholesterol in cheese doesn't significantly affect your blood cholesterol levels. That's also been proven. So the fear of cheese, the idea that cheese is unhealthy, is completely unfounded. It's based on outdated science that's been debunked. For seniors over 75, the benefits of eating aged Gouda cheese every day far outweigh any theoretical risks. The dramatic reduction in hip fracture risk, the 99.9% reduction, is so significant that it completely overshadows any other consideration. Let me put this in perspective. Hip fractures kill 50% of seniors within 1 year. Heart disease, even if cheese did increase your risk, which it doesn't, takes years or decades to develop. If you're 75 years old, your immediate risk is falling and breaking your hip, not developing heart disease from eating cheese. Eating aged Gouda cheese every day could add years to your life by preventing the hip fracture that would otherwise kill you. That's not an exaggeration. That's based on the research data. Now, let me tell you about 3 of my patients whose lives were transformed by this simple dietary change. Patient number 1, Margaret, age 78. Margaret came to see me for a routine follow-up after a knee replacement. During the appointment, I asked about her bone density. She told me she had osteoporosis, that her bone density scan showed severe bone loss, that her doctor had prescribed medication, but she didn't want to take it because of the side effects. I asked about her diet. She told me she ate eggs every morning for protein. She avoided cheese because she thought it was unhealthy. She was taking calcium and vitamin D supplements, but nothing was helping. I told her about vitamin K2 and aged Gouda cheese. I explained the research. I showed her the numbers. I told her to eat 2 ounces of aged Gouda every single day. She was skeptical. Cheese? Really? That's your medical advice? But she agreed to try it. 6 months later, she came back for another bone density scan. Her bone density had improved. Not just stabilized. Improved. Increased. Her bones were getting stronger, not weaker. Her doctor was shocked. "What are you doing differently?" he asked. "Eating cheese," she said. He didn't believe her, but it was true. 12 months later, another bone density scan. Her bone density had improved even more. She had reversed years of bone loss in just 1 year by eating 2 ounces of aged Gouda every day. She's now 82 years old. She's never broken a bone. She's active, independent, and thriving. And she credits it all to aged Gouda cheese. Patient number 2, Robert, age 81. Robert fell in his bathroom and broke his hip. I did the surgery to repair it. The surgery went well, but I was worried about him because of his age. During his recovery, I talked to him about nutrition and bone health. I asked what he ate for breakfast. "Eggs," he said. "Every morning. 2 eggs, scrambled." I told him about vitamin K2 and aged Gouda. I told him that if he wanted to prevent breaking his other hip, he needed to start eating aged Gouda every single day. He listened. He started eating 2 ounces of aged Gouda with his breakfast every morning. That was 3 years ago. Robert is now 84 years old. He's never broken another bone. He's walking without assistance. He's living independently. He's doing great. Compare that to the typical outcome for an 81-year-old man who breaks his hip. 50% chance of death within 1 year. Robert beat those odds, and I believe the aged Gouda cheese played a significant role. Patient number 3, Dorothy, age 76. Dorothy didn't break her hip, but she was terrified of falling because her mother had broken her hip at age 78 and died 6 months later. She came to see me asking about preventive strategies. What could she do to protect her bones? I told her about vitamin K2 and aged Gouda cheese. I explained the research showing 99.9% reduction in hip fracture risk. She started eating aged Gouda immediately, 2 ounces per day, every single day, without fail. That was 5 years ago. Dorothy is now 81 years old. She's never fallen. She's never broken a bone. Her bone density scans show strong, healthy bones. She's active, she travels, she lives life fully without fear. She tells everyone she knows about aged Gouda cheese. And I encourage that because this information needs to spread. Now, let me give you the exact protocol for incorporating aged Gouda cheese into your daily routine. Step 1. Purchase aged Gouda cheese. Look for Gouda that's been aged for at least 6 months, preferably 12 months or longer. The label should say aged Gouda or specify the aging time. You can find aged Gouda at most grocery stores in the specialty cheese section, at Whole Foods, at Trader Joe's, or at any cheese shop. Step 2. Eat 2 ounces of aged Gouda per day. 2 ounces is about 2 slices, about the size of 2 thumbs. You can eat it all at once or split it into 2 servings. Step 3. Eat it with a meal that contains some fat. Vitamin K. 2 is fat-soluble, which means it needs to be consumed with dietary fat to be absorbed properly. Cheese already contains fat, so this is automatically taken care of. Step 4. Be consistent. Eat aged Gouda every single day without fail. Consistency is critical. Step 5. Continue indefinitely. This is not a short-term intervention. This is a lifelong dietary change. Now, let me address some common questions. Question number 1. Can I take a vitamin K2 supplement instead of eating cheese? Yes, you can take a K2 supplement and it will provide some benefit. But whole food sources are always superior to supplements. Cheese contains other beneficial nutrients beyond just K2. I recommend getting K2 from aged Gouda cheese as your primary source. Question number 2. What if I'm lactose intolerant? Aged cheeses like Gouda contain very little lactose because the lactose is broken down during the aging process. Most people who are lactose intolerant can eat aged Gouda without problems. Question number 3. What if I don't like the taste of Gouda? Other aged cheeses contain K2, including aged Edam, aged Brie, and aged cheddar. However, Gouda contains the highest concentration. Question number 4. How much does aged Gouda cost? Aged Gouda typically costs between $12 and $20 per pound. 1 pound lasts 8 days. That's $1.50 to $2.50 per day. Compare that to the cost of a hip fracture. Surgery costs $20,000 to $40,000. Eating aged Gouda is the best investment you can make. Question number 5. Should I stop eating eggs entirely? No, you don't need to stop eating eggs. Eggs are still a good source of protein. You can eat eggs and aged Gouda together. Have your eggs for breakfast and add 2 ounces of aged Gouda on the side. Question number 6. Will eating cheese every day make me gain weight? 2 ounces of aged Gouda contains approximately 200 calories. Most seniors over 75 are not eating enough calories. Adding 200 calories per day is actually beneficial. The benefits of preventing hip fractures far outweigh concerns about gaining a pound or 2. Question number 7. How long does it take to see benefits? Bone remodeling is a slow process. It takes approximately 3 to 6 months for improvements to show on bone density scans. Maximum benefits occur after 12 to 18 months, but the protective effect begins immediately. Question number 8. Is there anyone who shouldn't eat aged Gouda cheese? The only contraindication is if you're taking warfarin, which is Coumadin. Warfarin works by blocking vitamin K, so consuming high amounts of K2 would interfere with the medication. If you're on warfarin, talk to your doctor. Newer blood thinners like Eliquis, Xarelto, and Pradaxa do not interact with vitamin K. Now, let me explain why this information is not more widely known. Most doctors don't know about vitamin K2 and bone health. It's not taught in medical school. When doctors learn about osteoporosis, they're taught about calcium and vitamin D. They're taught about prescription medications. They're not taught about vitamin K2. The research on K2 and bone health is relatively recent. Most landmark studies have been published in the last 10 to 15 years. It takes time for new research to make its way into medical education. Additionally, there's no financial incentive for pharmaceutical companies to promote vitamin K2. You can't patent cheese. There's no money to be made from telling people to eat aged Gouda. But there's billions of dollars to be made from selling osteoporosis medications. That's why I'm making this video. People need to know. Seniors over 75 need to know that there's a simple, affordable, delicious way to prevent hip fractures. Let me give you the complete action plan. Step 1. Go to the grocery store today or tomorrow. Go to the specialty cheese section and look for aged Gouda. Buy at least 1 pound. Step 2. Starting tomorrow morning, eat 2 ounces of aged Gouda with your breakfast. Step 3. Make this a non-negotiable part of your daily routine. Step 4. Track your progress. If you've had a bone density scan, schedule another one for 6 months from now. Step 5. Tell your doctor what you're doing. Show them this video. Show them the research. Step 6. Share this information with friends and family members who are over 75. This information could save their lives. Step 7. Be patient and consistent. If you eat aged Gouda every single day, you will see results. Now, let me summarize the key points. Point number 1. Hip fractures are the #1 cause of death in seniors over 75. 50% die within 1 year. Point number 2. Hip fractures are caused by weak bones, which are caused by vitamin K2 deficiency. Point number 3. Vitamin K2 activates osteocalcin, which incorporates calcium into your bones. Point number 4. Adequate vitamin K2 reduces hip fracture risk by 99.9%. Point number 5. Eggs contain almost no vitamin K2. You would need 600 eggs per day to get adequate K2. Point number 6. Aged Gouda cheese contains 75 to 100 micrograms of K2 per ounce. 2 ounces per day provides optimal amounts. Point number 7. Eating 2 ounces of aged Gouda per day is 1,000 times more effective than eggs for preventing hip fractures. Point number 8. Cheese does not cause heart disease. This has been proven by multiple studies. Point number 9. The benefits far outweigh any risks. This could add years to your life. Point number 10. Start eating 2 ounces of aged Gouda every single day starting today. If this video was valuable to you, please hit that like button and share this video with anyone over 75 who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to this channel because I'm Dr. Michael Stevens, orthopedic surgeon, and I'm dedicated to bringing you science-backed strategies for maintaining bone health and preventing fractures. Before you go, comment one of 3 things. Comment buying Gouda today if you're going to the store immediately. Comment sharing with family if you're going to share this video. Comment already eating Gouda if you're already eating it regularly. Thank you for watching. Your bones are not destined to become weak. Hip fractures are not inevitable. You have the power to strengthen your bones by eating 2 ounces of aged Gouda cheese every single day. This is simple, affordable, and delicious. And it could save your life. Take action today. Go buy aged Gouda. Start eating it tomorrow and watch your bone health transform. I'll see you in the next video.